On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, y'all hear from me and Big Sarge a lot, but today we'll be joined by Ruben from 713 Houston Sports, and we also dive into the YouTube comments. What is on y'all minds?
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman, Texans credential media member and football analyst. Of course, joined by the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Barfield. Got on one of those H-Town blue hoodies right now. I need one of those. Thank you guys for watching today's show and for being a part of our everyday family, for making the Locked On Texans your first listen of the day. You guys are a part of the Locked On Network family, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We'll be talking with Ruben from 713 Houston Sports. We'll be breaking down, are the Texans broken? How can the Texans rebound? And then Sarge and I will close off with some YouTube comments. So without further ado, let's talk to my man, Ruben. Welcome in, Battle Red Nation, to this Friday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. As promised, my man, Big Ruben, 713 Houston Sports. They call him Mr. 713, and for good reason. Covering the Houston Texans, a great following. But it's time to talk about a very frustrating team right now for the Texan fans. The state of the Texans, especially with the fan base, is not the greatest. At the game Sunday, the loss that they suffered to the Tennessee Titans, 32-27.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of fans leave out that stadium pissed off before the clock struck zero. So this conversation that I want to have with you is just simply centered around where did it all go wrong for a team that had a lot of promise, a lot of hope coming into this season, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. All the Texans broken?
It hurts to say it, but yes, it is. And entering this season, when you have expectations of going places where you've never gone before, AFC Championship, dare I say even Super Bowl, and you seeing this season play out, yes, the Houston Texans are broken. And, when you point to, where did it all go wrong? I think it started around, week 3, week 4. We started realizing that maybe this offensive line isn't what we hoped it was going to be. Remember, we had the notion of the fact that they never played together. And because we saw great performances without Laramie and Titus and company, with them there, it should be great. No, this O-line has been horrible all year, John. And for me, when the alarm started ringing, when CJ Stroud against the Green Bay Packers grabbed his helmet and threw it on the floor, that immediately was signaled in red lights. Your quarterback is frustrated, and that was very uncharacteristic. And then we saw this offensive line. I mean, the pressure rate just got worse and worse and worse. And now we are seeing CJ Stroud struggle. Now we are seeing the sophomore slump. We're scared to say it, but it's finally here. He is having himself a sophomore slump. But for me, it started all the way back in week 3. We saw a horrible sign when he threw his helmet down against Green Bay. Very uncharacteristic from CJ Stroud. And now we are seeing the result of it. And man, it sucks. I love this team. I always say H-Town till I drown. I've said they could go crazy places, but dude, yesterday's loss, man, it was real defeating. They really came in here, man, and took over.
You know what, Ruben? The work you put in, you were bound to be behind scenes with this franchise one day. And so I say that to say you are pointing at week 3, and I do mean what I just said, by the way. You're pointing at week 3, right? Big Sarge, my co-host, said the game plan really was exploited week 2, second half against Chicago.
Absolutely.
But I want to take it a step further back to my previous co-host in our conversation from training camp. And it got to a point one day, Cody Davis, who's in Detroit right now covering the Detroit Pistons, he said, hey, when was the last time we said the offense had a good day? That's how often this Texans defense were beating the Texans offense in practice. And so
Mm.
I thought at that point, I said, man, you know what? Maybe it's because they're going up against each other every day, and you got a defensive-minded head coach who's really good. But the fact is, the offensive line had issues during training camp. And then you also got to consider how often did we see Laramie participate in training camp, preseason, all that, right? And I know a lot
Captain,
of you
by the way.
guys, I know a lot of you guys are kind of done with Laramie,
Mm.
and I'm on record about saying I think this team needs, at least 3 new offensive linemen. But
Yes.
the offensive struggles, I think, have been there this entire time. We chose to ignore it
For sure.
because we had the expectation of CJ is going to get it done. CJ is going to figure this thing out. But the fact is, this is still a sophomore quarterback trying to figure out a scheme that I don't think, and stop me if I'm wrong because I want to get your opinion on it, that I don't think the scheme is confident in the play caller. The play caller isn't confident in his play calling ability. We've had issues with the play sequencing all year. So do you think that Bobby Sloyd and his issues and his deficiencies as a play caller has finally caught up to CJ Stroud? Because I think the last 2 games, Bobby's been good. CJ hasn't been the best.
Oh, no, absolutely. And, like I said, I think this is all added up to where we are now, right? You cannot have your second-year quarterback and your second-year offensive coordinator struggling at the same time. And when you do have a franchise quarterback, man, I think that, the sense of urgency should be at an all-time high. And when we were noticing struggles, and you guys, because I watch our show almost every day, you guys were mentioning the struggles all the way back around week 4, week 5. The offense is struggling. And I feel like that should have been a sign to the Houston Texans front office or, D'Amico that, hey, we got a young guy who we believe in, and, maybe we have to shake some things around. We saw what small changes could do. You bring in Jared Patterson, and then you have a scoring drive against the Colts. You start Kendrick Green, and then you give a long 98-yard touchdown drive against the New York Jets, your longest in years. So we see what changes can do. And I think you need one right now. Now, does it happen? I'm not too sure. Maybe by the bye week. But I think it absolutely has caught up to Bobby Slowick. Remember, he was getting head coaching interviews in the offseason.
Yeah.
And I doubt that's going to happen this year.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. Ruben, the fan base right now, man. I think coming into this season, everybody was prepared to enjoy a high. And this season hasn't been really the dopamine ain't been there for the fan base this year. Is the fan base broken right now? Because guys are calling for people's heads. Deshaun Watson wants to be,
the cartel, them wanting CJ. Like, oh my God.
Ladies crying at the radio station. She crying, called. I said, man, what's going on? It's a lot of chaos. The fan base is broken right now, man. I don't think there's no way around it.
100%. I think the honeymoon is over, John, right? The honeymoon is over with D'Amico. It's over with CJ. It's over with this team. Last year, as amazing as it was last year. And when you have these expectations of, big dreams, when you're not getting there, of course, you're going to crash out. I saw a dude grab his TV from the tailgate and throw it right into the trash. And I'm like, come on, dude, that costs money. But the fan base is broken. That. Dude, like when I start seeing, Davis Mills, wouldn't run back into the end zone. Oh, I need, number 4 back. Or, dude, I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? But when you have these expectations, man, and you see the result out there, and, we all know what the problem is. It is the offense. And every week we're saying, well, if they just get it right, And at this point in the season, it's just not going to get right. And, You've seen this story before, John. The Houston Texans taking advantage of a weak division, getting into the playoffs, but we all know deep down inside that they are not for real. And yesterday's game was the realization that this team isn't for real. And I hate this phrase, John, when I loathe it. Same old Houston Texans. I hate that with the passion. But yesterday, we saw the same old Houston Texans. And the fan base, absolutely, man, it is broken, dude. It's tough. It's tough out here in the scenes.
What's the beef with D'Amico? His team, his defense, top 3 in the NFL.
I 100% agree. You know, this defense is a big reason why the Houston Texans are where they are now. But when you hear the fan base, they are upset why on the offensive side, that sense of urgency is not there. Remember what he told Kalen Bull and Kamar Lassiter in the year one, guys. We're not waiting for you. We've been waiting for this Houston Texan offense to get going all year. And fans are upset now, and we want to change right now. Does it happen realistically at this point in the season? No, but I go back to what I said. When you have a franchise quarterback, the sense of urgency needs to be at an all-time high. You know, as quickly as they can develop, they can diminish. And right now we're seeing CJ Stroud struggle. Like it's so insane year one to year two.
Ruben, I would love to get your thoughts on how the Texans can rebound and potentially save the season, if this season can be saved. I think you and I can agree they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win this division, 3rd seed, 4th seed, however that plays out for them. But the fact remains, if they had a chance to make a deep run, changes are needed. Will it happen in season? We're not sure, but we'll talk about that and more on today's show. What's going on, Texan fans? Have you guys had an opportunity to make it out to a Texans game this year? If not, you're missing out on some good food and some good fun. Check out Gametime right now. What I love about Gametime, first of all, they are the best place to go find your tickets. Make it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, and theater events. They also give you a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and Gametime will also credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same ticket for a seat in the same section and row for less anywhere else. But above all, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So not only do they protect you, but they also give you some very good deals on tickets to go see the Texans, to go see the Rockets, or if you want to go see a comedy event near you, you can do all of that on Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it?
Game time.
In Battle Red Nation, my man Ruben, Mr. 713. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at 713HOU Sports, holding it down. Listen, man, can this season be saved? Can the Texans rebound, or does rebounding look like an off-season destination?
You know, the fan in me, the fan in me wants me to say yes. And here's the thing. When you have number 7 back there in quarterback, there is still some faith in me where he can break out of this. However, when you see that the second half, this offense collapse, when you see there's multiple games with no 7 points, it was brought up that the defense has scored more touchdowns in the second half than the offense has in the last 5 games. Like, that is abysmal. So is there saving? I really don't know. Can there be changes? Yes. And I think the biggest change has to be at play caller, right? Maybe you don't fire Bobby Sloak, but maybe you take away some of his responsibilities and give it to someone like quarterback coach Gerard Johnson, who has known CJ Stroud since high school. I have been saying this for the past 2 years. If you go back and watch the Elite 11 season, you see Gerard Johnson there with CJ Stroud. They have a connection. And right now, when you see him by himself after he makes a mistake, his body language is horrible. You know, it doesn't really feel like someone is there trying to pick him up.
And I noticed that a lot. Like, where's Case Keenum? We have constantly seen CJ, be at the aid of his teammates. And we've seen CJ knocked around. We've seen them with 8 or 9 sacks in the game. We've seen it all from CJ Stroud. And it seems like he continues to take these hits physically, mentally, but there's not a player or a coach on that coaching staff around that's pulling him up. And I think that's a large part of why nobody feels like this season can be saved in terms of the AFC South Championship Super Bowl run that a lot of people were expecting.
I mean, 100%. Like, we forget he is still like a kid who is growing up, barely allowed to drink, and he has a $1 billion franchise, at his hands. Of course, he is going to struggle. He is going through life as well. And when I see him there looking almost like he is about to cry, I'm like, where is any type of coach around him, trying to build him up? Because, I feel like we forget that he is a year 2 quarterback. And, you do have to develop your young guy. He cannot do it all. I think it was Storm who brought it up and said that, if this car is, if this offense is a race car, you can't have CJ Stroud being the driver, being in the helmet. He needs help out there. You got to make it easy for our guy. And does a change of play caller solve it? I'm not too sure, John, but I know a breath of fresh air can do wonders for people. And maybe that could be, the kind of last thing this team does right before you get to the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Ravens, all in 10 days. Maybe that could be what saves your season. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, and I think all of those games, especially the Baltimore Ravens at home on Christmas, we'll see Beyonce perform, and then you got the Kansas City Chiefs on the road during that weather.
Wouldn't that give you hope, though? Like, hey, during the bye week, there has been a change at play call. Gerard Johnson will now be making the decisions on the sideline. We will
hope.
be saying,
I don't know if it'll give me hope. I don't know if it'll give me hope. Because not yesterday, Sunday, when we were watching the game, I said, hey, listen, the defense, this was in the first half. The defense gave up, 20 points, really 17. CJ Stroud threw the interception to John Mitchell right before the half, and so they gave him a field goal. But they gave up 17 points to the Tennessee Titans that only averaged 18.8 points per game. So they were already at their average. Will Levis was having a good game at that point. The running game was good for Houston. For Tennessee. Tony Pollard had already almost rushed for 100 yards. And I was thinking to myself, okay, typically in these games, we expect the defense to save the offense. Is there any hope that we believe the offense can save the defense? And my thought was no.
Exactly.
And we saw the defense again try to save the offense, but in the second half, but then again, no touchdowns from the offense in the second half. So I don't think a Gerard Johnson move is going to change that until I see it. I have not saw it. Even against Dallas, it took all the way up until late in the game for a Joe Mixon rushing touchdown. And even still, who helped them in that game? The defense. They scored a defensive touchdown. So I'm not 100% on board that anything is going to fix this offense. Any major change, is going to fix this offense. The only thing that's going to fix this offense are the offensive players clicking, getting on rhythm, and holding themselves accountable and saying, we got to do better and performing as such. I think a change to Gerard Johnson right now at this point in the season is a little bit extreme because it's late in the game. Same way we thought, like, why wouldn't you make the change with Kenyon Green and Jared Patterson way before you did? Maybe you could have salvaged some of the season for the Houston Texans.
That's why a lot of fans are upset with D'Amico, right? We're not upset at the defense. The defense has saved, our season. It is the offense. It is the, the constant struggles, the constant when you get to quarters 3 and 4, you shut down and no changes are being made. That's the frustration from fans, right? We have no doubt the defense is going to, bounce back from the Tennessee Titans, but we know the offense isn't. And the fact that there is no change is why fans are frustrated, right? We talked about Chris Strausser, many times about why is he still here. He said it himself. This is the first time he's ever been in this type of system. And he's still here. And that should tell you that, no change could be, can or will be made. And that's why a lot of fans are upset. A lot of fans feel hopeless. And that's why I told you maybe the only way you could save the season if you do go to Gerard. But like you just mentioned, at this point in the season, it's late, it's extreme. I don't think it will happen.
I think the only way this team can fully rebound into the team that a lot of people, including myself, and I'm sure you expected them to be, are changes in the offseason where there is time to not feel rushed, to go back and look over your work. So we have 18 weeks in the regular season, a playoff week, let's put everything on blast. Let's
Mhm.
put everything on the big board and say, okay, these are our strengths. So let's put them over here. Let's find a way to continue to be good and be better. But these are our weaknesses. And
Mhm.
those weaknesses could be coaching staff. Houston lost Shane Day this offseason. So maybe he had a role, and maybe need another offensive advisor. Offensive line. Again, I'm on record saying I think this team needs at least 3 new offensive linemen.
Yes, I agree.
Shaq Mason looks 2 or 3 steps slower than he did last year. I'm not the biggest fan of Titus Howard. I think that contract was a little too much. And then you also got to look at addressing the left guard position. Okay. I don't think you can move on from Laramie because of that contract. Weapons. Do we look to bring back Stephon Diggs? I also think that in a way, Stephon kind of threw the offense out not because he's a diva. I don't think he's been a diva for this team.
No,
but
absolutely not.
because the play calling was forced to make sure he's involved and not allow everybody to touch the rock. And if you remember last year for CJ Stroud, yeah, Nico had a big year. Tank had a big year. But how often are we seeing Dalton Schultz one catch here, one catch there, and there are quarters in between one another?
And you gave him a 3-year, $30 million contract, man.
And you're using him as a blocker, but he's not a blocking tight end. And so if I'm Dalton Schultz, I'm pissed. I came here to catch passes, not to block 300-pound defensive linemen, and then I'm getting criticized for it. So they have things that where they are now as a team, a good base.
You can't fix them now.
You can't fix them now, but they have a good base. You know what you need to build off on.
Yeah.
And in the offseason, you're looking at a team that could potentially just fix the problems or get better in areas that can hide more of their issues until they're able to continue to build this franchise. This is year 2 into this Bobby Slowick, DeMeco Ryans reign. They're going to need a little bit more time.
And time is on their side, right? You do have a couple of years until you have to, pay your quarterback, CJ Stroud. So, this is what you want to do when you have a rookie quarterback on that deal is, build around him, get some talent and develop him. And maybe, it is just like you say, we throw everything on the board. This is what went wrong. And, it just sucks though, bro, because we have the highest paid O-line in the NFL. You spend a 2nd-round pick on Juice Scruggs, a 1st-round pick on Kenyon Green. And, and we're like, if we do spend draft capital, are they even going to play well? So,
yeah. Well, that's where I think the ego of this team hurt them this year too. It was let's get what we can out of our 1st and 2nd rounders when those guys are just not those guys. And I think, again, I think for Juice, he really got a bad end of the deal because maybe he should have been that left guard to start the year off. Maybe center was too much for him. Kenyon Green, we thought he was going to take a turn. In week 1, he took that turn. But time and time again, whenever he was punched in the mouth physically on the football field, of course, he never was able to respond. And I think his confidence from there shot down. Ruben, man, thank you for stopping by, spending time with me on the Locked On Texans podcast. Where can our listeners and followers find all of your amazing work?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thank you for allowing me to come on here. Just type in 713 Houston Sportcast on YouTube. I'll pop right up. Drop daily Houston Texans content, man. We're H-Town till we drown. Thank you once again, John.
Thank you for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. Texan fans, are you ready to take your football experience to the next level? With FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook, they are here to make every Texan game even more exciting. And let's face it, by the time the second half roll around, Sarge, the games are no longer exciting. So FanDuel is hooking y'all up right now. You can dive into the season's hottest Texans props and odds. The Texans are a 5.5-point favorite in this Jacksonville Jaguar game, and the over-under right now is 43.5 points. If you're feeling lucky, go ahead and look to take it to one of those props and odds. How about this one? FanDuel has the odds for the Texans' first scoring play at plus 160 for a touchdown, plus 320 for a field goal, and if you're feeling extremely lucky, plus 10,000 if the Texans' first score is a safety. You talk about a come up, there it is. So when you get a hunch of the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150. and bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Big Sarge.
Yes, sir.
The Texans community isn't the happiest right now.
And they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be. And I think we see stuff online all the time. I know that people call you or DM you, text you, and like, hey, man, I'm just mad. I'm pissed off right now because the Houston Texans just ain't getting it done.
Yep.
But in YouTube comments, it's not a good place right now, Sarge.
It's toxic.
It's toxic. My man, Christopher Curry, 23-17, 12 games, 14 TDs from CJ. Houston, we definitely have a problem. Now, my question to you is, how much, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does Houston having a problem gets attributed to CJ Stroud?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it has to be about 5. I'll say 5 because you have to give him the leeway because of his experience. And I know that he came in and did some superhuman type things during his rookie year, but second year, which everybody now has film and everybody has film on what the offense as a whole is doing. I'm not going to blame, the offensive coordinator. I'm not going to blame the offensive line or any of the schemes or anything like that. It's just that, now you have a whole year of film. Did you think about it? Coming into the season, into CJ Stroud's rookie season, the only film anybody had was of Ohio State. That's the only thing they had. But now you have a year of NFL film on him. And so he has regressed a little bit. And when I say regress, it's because we're still using the expectations from we set the expectations based off of what he did his rookie year. And so even his regression, though, John, is some people's good season right now.
Yeah.
And so, I have to give him, 50% of the blame as well. So I would say 5.
That's actually good because the next comment I'm looking at is from Reginald Rager, 2143. Bobby and the O-line took the fun out of watching this team.
Yeah.
As a lot of people feel like that. Matthew
Yeah.
Wahasi says, I love my Texans, but I'm finding it hard to root for this team as currently construction. I need some kind of action to fix this offensive scheme, play calling. Otherwise, we are the Browns from last year.
Whoa.
Yikes.
Whoa.
Yikes.
If you're talking about the
team,
Browns from last year, then you're talking about that Browns team that was led by Joe Flacco?
The same team that saw how many quarterbacks take snaps last year? And not because it was a blowout win or here and there. Like when Houston is up big, we've seen Davis Mills, but not because of that, but because Deshaun got hurt, couldn't get it done. They had somebody else take snaps. Joe Flacco ended off the season because they needed a quarterback and they called him off the couch. I don't think this team is put together like the Browns. I think that's kind of unfair to CJ Stroud, honestly.
Yeah, definitely unfair to compare him to any of those quarterbacks from the Browns. And I guess the similarities would be, though, John, you're talking about, because what led that Browns resurgence last year was their defense. Like their defense was really good. And so what's leading the Houston Texans right now? Their defense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. But really quick, do you think people have overused the word scheme? Because I feel like at some point we do got to put the place some type of blame on the players. Like, and I see the excuse, it's the scheme, it's the scheme, it's the scheme. And I'm like, well, you got drop passes, you got overthrows, you got throws in the dirt. Have we got too analytical with this scheme word and we're using it too much?
John, I'm about to do the thing that my wife hates me doing the most. I'm going to answer a question with a question.
Oh, man.
Right? You said, do we overuse the word scheme, right?
Like, are we using it too much as an excuse?
So here's my thing. This, to me, I don't think it's an excuse. I think the scheme really matters. I'm going to take you back to the Detroit Lions game. Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. What did Ben Johnson do? Scheme up a different game plan in order for them to be successful and win the game. So I think that scheme matters a lot. I don't think that it's an overused word. And I don't think that it's an excuse because, like you said, you still need the players to go out there and execute, of course. But John, wouldn't you say that, well, I can't, I wish I would have had this written down. What is it? Proper planning, something. So, the buzzwords y'all be using in corporate America, proper planning, blah, 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 blah. But
proper planning prevents
poor something.
Poor performance.
Yeah. I guess
something like that. Yeah.
We're gonna say it that way. So think about it though, John. I mean, it like the one reason you're successful at your job is not just because you're very talented and can do what they ask you to do, but they also put you in the right positions. So you got to be put in the right position in order to execute. Because if not, then just let CJ call his own plays.
In the life of Kobe 791. Remember when I asked you, Sarge, what the Houston Texans got to do for you to feel very confident in them heading into the bye week? Yes. Remember what you said? 5 touchdowns.
Yep.
Life of Kobe said 5 touchdowns from CJ on Sunday, Sarge. We playing Madden now?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Hey, look, let me tell you something. It can happen. Like we've seen 5 touchdowns in a game before, and I broke it down. I mean, and it's not, look, John, it's not too far-fetched to think that he could throw 2 touchdowns to Nico, 1 touchdown to Mechie, 1 touchdown to Tank, and 1 touchdown to a tight end.
It's not,
especially going up against a 2-9 team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, they got some good things on defense, but they ain't got a great defense. That's why they're 2-9.
I would say that I think Houston does need a pass the sticks moment.
Yeah.
They ain't had one in a long time. So if you want to say we playing Madden now, like if that's the case, if CJ can go out there and throw for 5 TDs, I think we'll probably see Davis Mills in relief. And I think that'll be one of those moments where we look at the Jags and just say, hey, man, pass the sticks. It's over with. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, the weekend episode. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Hopefully, Texan fans, Houston pulls out a win Sunday. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.